by its essence. A non-empty entity can be fully characterized non-relationally. For emptiness to be non-empty would be for it to be a substantial entity, an independent existent, a non-conventional phenomenon. On such a view, emptiness would be entirely distinct from any conventional phenomenon. It would, on such a view, be the object of correct perception, while conventional phenomena would be the objects of delusive perception. While conventional phenomena would be dependent upon conventions, conditions, or the ignorance of obstructed minds, emptiness, on such a view, would be apparent precisely when one sees through those conventions, dispels that ignorance, and overcomes those obstructions. Though such a position might appear metaphysically extravagant, it is hardly unmotivated. For one thing, it seems that emptiness does have an identifiable essence, namely the lack of inherent existence. So if to be empty is to be empty of essence, emptiness fails on that count to be empty. Moreover, since all phenomena, on the Madhyamika view, are empty, emptiness would appear to be eternal and independent of any particular conventions and, hence, not dependently arisen. The two truths, on such an ontological vision, are indeed radically distinct from one another.
But this position is, from Nagarjuna's perspective, untenable. The best way to see that is this: suppose that we take a conventional entity, such as a table. We analyze it to demonstrate its emptiness, finding that there is no table apart from its parts, that it cannot be distinguished in a principled way from its antecedent and subsequent histories, and so forth. So we conclude that it is empty. But now let us analyze that emptiness, the emptiness of the table, to see what we find. What do we find? Nothing at all but the table's lack of inherent existence. No conventional table, no emptiness of the table. The emptiness is dependent upon the table and is, therefore, itself empty of inherent existence, as is the emptiness of that emptiness, and so on, ad infinitum. To see the table as empty, for Nagarjuna, is not to somehow see beyond the illusion of the table to some other, more real entity. It is to see the table as conventional, as dependent. But the table that we see when we see its emptiness is the very same table, seen not as the substantial thing we instinctively posit, but rather as it is. Emptiness is hence not different from conventional reality. It is the fact that conventional reality is conventional. Hence it must be dependently arisen, since it depends upon the existence of empty phenomena. Hence emptiness itself is empty. This is perhaps the most radical and deep step in the Madhyamika dialectic, but it is also, as we shall see, the step that saves it from falling into metaphysical extravagance and brings it back to sober pragmatic skepticism.
37. If emptiness itself is rejected, no action will be appropriate. There would be action which did not begin, and there would be agent without action. Without viewing the world as empty, we can make no sense of any human activity. Action would be pointless since nothing could be accomplished. Any existent action would have to have been eternal, and anyone who is an agent would be so independently of any action since agency would be an essential attribute. 38. If there is essence, the whole world will be unarising, unceasing, and static. The entire phenomenal world would be immutable. Without viewing the world as empty, we can make no sense of impermanence or dependent origination and hence no sense of change.
39. If it, the world, were not empty, then action would be without profit. The act of ending suffering and abandoning misery and defilement would not exist. Perhaps most important from the standpoint of Buddhist phenomenology and, though not hard to see, easy to overlook, we are driven to reify ourselves, the objects in the world around us, and in more abstract philosophical moods theoretical constructs, values, and so on because of an instinctual feeling that without an intrinsically real self, an intrinsically real world, and intrinsically real values, life has no real meaning and is utterly hopeless. Nagarjuna emphasizes at the close of this chapter that this gets things exactly backward. If we seriously and carefully examine what such a reified world would be like, it would indeed be hopeless. But if instead we treat ourselves, others, and our values as empty, there is hope and a purpose to life. For then, in the context of impermanence and dependence, human action and knowledge make sense, and moral and spiritual progress become possible. It is only in the context of ultimate non-existence that actual existence makes any sense at all.
40. Whoever sees dependent arising also sees suffering. And its arising. And its cessation as well as the path. Nagarjuna closes as he opens with the Four Noble Truths, this time connecting them not negatively, as in the beginning, to emptiness, but positively, to dependent arising. Understanding the nature of dependent arising is itself understanding emptiness, and is itself the understanding of the Four Noble Truths. It is absolutely critical to understanding the dialectical structure not only of this chapter, but of the entire text to see that this doctrine of the emptiness of emptiness that is the central thesis of Madhyamika philosophy emerges directly from 24. For the emptiness of emptiness, as we have just seen, simply amounts to the identification of emptiness with the property of being dependently arisen, and with the property of having an identity just in virtue of conventional verbal designation. It is the fact that emptiness is no more than this that makes it empty, just as it is the fact that conventional phenomena in general are no more than conventional and no more than their parts and status in the causal nexus that makes them empty.
Paradox may appear to loom at this point. For, one might argue, if emptiness is empty, and to be empty is to be merely conventional, then the emptiness of any phenomenon is a merely conventional fact. Moreover, to say that entities are merely conventional is merely conventional. Hence it would appear optional, as all conventions are. Hence it would seem to be open to say that things are in fact non-conventional and therefore non-empty. This would be a deep incoherence indeed at the heart of Nagarjuna's system. But the paradox is merely apparent. The appearance of paradox derives from seeing conventional as functioning logically like a negation operator, a subtle version of the nihilistic reading Nagarjuna is at pains to avoid with a metalinguistic twist. For then, each iteration of conventional would cancel the previous occurrence, and the conventional character of the fact that things are conventional would amount to the claim that really they are not, or at least that they might not be. But in Nagarjuna's philosophical approach, the sense